Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about the best books that I have read during quarantine, during the lockdown. So usually I try to do those videos every season, but because of the lockdown, personally I was a bit in a reading slump, but I have finally read 30 books in the last 6-ish months, so I thought I would quickly mention each of them and then I will be mentioning my top 5. So let's get into it. So we're gonna go from April to right now mid-September. So in April, I read 4 books, which for me is kind of low. But again, I was in a reading slump. So I finished Starsight, This Is Going to Hurt, The Bands of Mourning, The Dark Forest. In May, I finished 3 books, The Whisperman, Over the Top, Royal Assassin. In June, I finished 5, Such a Fun Age, To Be Thought If Fortunate, This Is How You Lose a Time War, Red, White, and Royal Blue, The Nickel Boys. In July, I also finished 5 books, Death's End, A Memory Called Empire, The Unseen World, The Way of Kings, and The Book Thief. In August, I finished 8 books. Technically, 2 of them were DNF, so I didn't finish them, but I read at least 30% of them, and they were both pretty big. But let's go through them. The first one is The Girl and the Stars, 2001 A Space Odyssey, Imaginary Friend, which is one of the ones I didn't finish, Children of Ruin, Leviathan Wakes, The Name of the Wind, Across the Green Grass Fields, and Wanderers, which I also DNF. I think I was at 80-something%. And currently for September, I have read 5. So we have Home Before Dark, Assassin's Quest, Midnight Sun, Rebecca, and The Invisible Life of Adaline. Turns out it's kind of funny, but I ended up only liking enough a book, for this top 5, 1 per month. There's no month where I liked 2 enough to include in top 5, so it was pretty evenly spread, which I guess helped my slump a little bit. So the first book that made it in here was Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is technically book 2 in what's going to be a 4 books trilogy. That's how it works. Quartlet series. The first book is Skyward. I highly recommend it. This is a YA sci-fi series, and you're following the remnant of humanity that are constantly under attack by aliens. And in the first book, you're introduced a character, and she's gonna try to become a pilot to fight back, basically. And you get a ton of battleship battles. There's a lot of humor. It's definitely a bit YA humor, depending on your taste. I personally thought it was really funny. I really enjoyed it. I do want to mention that the main character is not super likable in the beginning, but it's meant to be like that. I feel like it's the only complaint I've heard. And what I liked is that, with Brandon Sanderson, usually the endings are always like a big reveal. Book 2 just brings it to a whole new level. It just opens up the whole world even more, and I really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, need to mention Doomslug, because if you've read any of these books, you will know that you need to root for Doomslug. And yeah, definitely enjoy that one. Definitely do recommend the series if you're looking for a new YA sci-fi to try. If I had to choose the top 1 in these 5 books, it would be this one. This is To Be Thought If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I adore her. This is my 4th book by her. It's actually kind of tiny. It's probably more like a novella. It's 140 pages, and I fell in love so hard with this one. It is also a sci-fi, but this is more, well, first off, adult, but it's also almost wholesome. And I feel like sci-fi and wholesomes are just never mixed, but I adore her writing. I just always say that it feels like home. She always has a great representation also. And in this one, you're following 4 people that are sent on a mission to explore. It is 1 moon, 3 planets, I believe, to try and find signs of life. And you're just following their journey. And what I like the most is that the first sentence, it literally starts by, well, first off, it says, please read this. But it says, if you read nothing else we've sent home, please at least read this. And it just really grips you, and you're just going back in time to try and figure out what happened. And I really loved it. I feel like a lot of people that don't necessarily enjoy sci-fi should probably try this one because it's very accessible. There's a bit of science in it, but I feel like once again, it's pretty well explained and doesn't take away from anything. And it's more of a character-driven sci-fi also. So yes, absolutely adore this. I can't rave about it enough. So if you're looking for a new adult sci-fi, this is definitely the best one I have read so far during quarantine. For 2020, one of my goals was to read a bunch of books that I thought I was going to give 5 stars to, kind of just predicted that I would need the pick-me-up. No, basically. Not really. I wanted to make sure I would have a great year this year, and good thing I tried to do this challenge because I definitely needed it. This book has been on my list for so long. This is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in what's going to be a 10-book series. It's an adult fantasy series, and I feel like everyone has been raving about this for so long, but I am someone that hates waiting in between books. I just don't want to start incomplete series. I just want to be able to binge read them if I like them. And the fourth book is actually coming out during the fall, so I felt a little safe because it's technically 2 groups of 5 books, so not too much to wait to continue. And these books are very chunky, so I do feel like it's going to take me a little while to get through the first 3 books. I should say 4, so I will be just in time for the 5th book, hopefully. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this series for a beginner reader for fantasy, just because there's a ton, and I mean a ton, of world building, just because, once again, it's going to be a 10-book series, but you are introduced to a few different characters, and it's just so interesting. The world building, the magic system. I have no idea. And I mean, no idea where this is going to go, but it's been really epic so far, and I'm very intrigued to continue. The characters are a lot more well developed, and you also get, you know, his strength, which is, again, magic system and world building, and the ending was also very good. So definitely recommend the series if you still haven't picked it up like me. The fourth book that made it to my best of quarantine reads is this one, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This was also actually on my list of 20 books I want to read in 2020, basically books that I thought I was going to give 5 stars to. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but still a very, 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 very good book. It's so hyped. Everyone has heard about it. There's this whole controversy because the 3rd book might never come out. But I just wanted to finally start reading the series. I do have the 2nd book also on my shelf, so it's not too bad. I can read the first 2 books at least. This is also an adult fantasy. You're following a character who, during 3 days, so 3 different books, 3 days, is retelling his life story. And he goes to a magical school, which is one of my favorite premises ever. And I loved, and I mean really, really loved this whole, like, you know, 3/4 of the book that was about that. I didn't care as much about the rest. First off, not a fan of the love interest. The romance in general is not really my cup of tea, but specifically that one wasn't really good. / I didn't really care about what they did because he went, it's not a spoiler, he goes like on a little sidetrack adventure and didn't really care for it. I have been warned that I will probably not like the 2nd book, but I'm still very much looking forward to reading it because I'm hoping, once again, more magic, definitely one of my weaknesses. So if you still haven't read it, definitely do, but definitely be warned because, again, the 3rd book, who knows what will happen. Last but not least, the 5th and last book in this top 5 is going to be The Invisible Life of Adaline by V.E. Schwab. Technically, this book is coming out, I believe it is October 6th, but I did have an arc, so I read it, just finished it actually. This is the last book I finished, and wow, amazing. I'm definitely giving that one probably a 4.5 or straight up a 5 stars. I adore it. It is going to be by far my favorite book by the author. It's completely different from everything else she has written. She usually writes fantasy, either YA or adult, although I guess one of them can be kind of sci-fi with superheroes. But this one, completely different. You're following this woman who doesn't want to get married. She lives in the 1700s, and she doesn't want to get married. This man, I was going to say this dude, very Canadian of me. This man lost his wife, and she's basically being forced to marry him as a replacement. She's not interested. She wants to be free and travel and do things with her life. She makes a deal kind of accidentally with pretty much a devil, but he obviously tricks her, and he does give her immortality, but she can never be remembered. So as soon as she leaves the room, basically people forget about her. She can't even tell them her real name. Actually, let me share what I had heard before I decided to read it, just because I think it's a good way of describing it without spoiling anything. So you're following this woman over 300 years, and it's kind of a love story between her and the devil. So gonna leave it at that. It's obviously a lot more than this. If I had to choose a genre for it, it's almost a bit literary fiction, definitely a bit of romance, but it's definitely not sickly romancy, again, not my jam. So I really, really love this. I do feel like the characters are stronger in this book than her other ones. And overall, I just really loved it. It's definitely sad, it's definitely character driven, but definitely something I highly recommend you check out as soon as it's out. So that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't want to miss anything. Also, let me know in the comment section if you have read any of these books, what you personally thought about them, and what were the best books that you personally read during the lockdown. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye.